The story of the Maba 1 fossil begins in a remarkable place. It was found in 1958 by farmers digging for fertilizer. They were working inside a limestone cave near the town of Maba, in Guangdong Province, southern China. This cave is known locally as Lion Rock. The discovery was not made by paleontologists on a planned expedition. Instead, it was an accidental find by local people. This often happens in the world of fossil discoveries. The farmers stumbled upon a partial skull cap, which was embedded in the cave sediments alongside the remains of ancient animals like hyenas and pandas. It was a moment of pure chance that brought a significant piece of the human story to light. This discovery was immediately recognized as important. The fossil was sent to scientists for study. They realized it was part of an ancient human skull. The skull cap, or calvaria, included the upper part of the face, the right eye socket, and a large portion of the forehead. Finding human fossils from this time period is very rare. The Middle Pleistocene, the era from which Maba 1 comes, is a critical time in human evolution. It is the period when our own species, Homo sapiens, was beginning to emerge in Africa. Therefore, any human fossil from this time in Asia is extremely valuable for understanding the bigger picture of our origins. The initial analysis of the Maba 1 skull dated it to around 129,000 to 135,000 years ago. This places it firmly in the late Middle Pleistocene. The age was determined by studying the layers of rock and the animal fossils found with it. This dating makes Maba 1 a contemporary of early Homo sapiens in Africa and the Neanderthals in Europe. Its location in southern China raised many questions. What kind of human was living in East Asia at this time? Were they related to the Neanderthals? Or were they a separate, unique lineage? The Maba skull held the potential to answer these questions, but it also introduced a great deal of complexity to the puzzle. The context of the find in Lion Rock Cave adds another layer to the story. The presence of carnivore remains suggests the cave might have been a hyena den. This means the Maba individual might not have lived in the cave, but was perhaps brought there after death. Understanding the environment and the circumstances of burial or deposition is crucial. It helps us reconstruct the world in which this ancient human lived. The Maba 1 fossil is not just a bone, it is a clue from a lost world. It represents an individual who lived and died in a very different southern China, one populated by now extinct giant animals. It challenges us to look beyond Europe and Africa as the sole centers of human evolution. When scientists first looked at the Maba 1 skull, they saw a confusing mix of features. It did not fit neatly into any known human species. On one hand, the skull has some characteristics that look like those of Neanderthals. For example, it has a prominent double-arched brow ridge over the eyes. The eye sockets are also somewhat rounded, which is a feature sometimes seen in Neanderthals. These similarities led some early researchers to suggest that Maba 1 could represent an Asian group of Neanderthals or a related species. This idea was exciting because Neanderthals were thought to be mostly a European and West Asian phenomenon. However, the Maba skull also has features that are very different from Neanderthals. The overall shape of the brain case is more rounded and gracile, less long and low like the classic Neanderthal skull. The bones of the skull are relatively thin. These traits are more similar to what we see in our own species, Homo sapiens. This combination of primitive and modern-looking features is what makes the Maba 1 fossil so difficult to classify. It is a mosaic, a patchwork of traits from different evolutionary paths. It refuses to be placed into a simple box, challenging our definitions of ancient human groups. The importance of this uncertainty cannot be overstated. Classifying a fossil helps us build the human family tree. If Maba 1 were a Neanderthal, it would mean their range extended much further east than previously thought. If it were an early Homo sapiens, it would change our understanding of when our species left Africa. The most intriguing possibility is that Maba 1 belongs to a different group altogether. It could be a member of the Denisovans, a mysterious group of archaic humans known mainly from DNA found in a Siberian cave. Or it could represent a distinct regional lineage of humans that evolved in East Asia. The debate over Maba 1's identity continues today. Every new analysis adds another piece to the puzzle. Some scientists argue it is an advanced form of Homo heidelbergensis, a possible common ancestor of both Neanderthals and modern humans. Others maintain it shows evidence of interbreeding between different human groups. This single skull from a Chinese cave forces us to reconsider the idea of a simple, linear human evolution. It suggests a much more complicated story, with multiple human species living at the same time and possibly interacting with each other across the vast continent of Asia. The Maba 1 fossil is not the only ancient human remain that presents a classification challenge. Other fossils from around the same time period show similarly confusing combinations of features. In Africa, for example, we have the Jebel Irhoud fossils from Morocco. Dated to around 300,000 years ago, these skulls have very modern-looking faces, much like our own. However, their brain cases are elongated and more archaic, similar to older human species. Like Maba, the Jebel Irhoud fossils represent a mosaic of modern and primitive traits, pushing back the origins of the Homo sapiens lineage while showing that modern features did not all evolve at once. Another interesting comparison comes from the Dali skull, also found in China. The Dali cranium is older than Maba 1, at about 260,000 years old. It too displays a mix of characteristics. It has a massive brow ridge and a low brain case, similar to the more ancient Homo erectus. But it also has a shorter, broader face and a larger brain capacity, which are more advanced features. Some scientists see both Dali and Maba as part of a continuous evolutionary sequence in East Asia. This lineage may have run parallel to the evolution of Neanderthals in Europe and Homo sapiens in Africa, showcasing a regional pattern of human development. These strange fossils from different continents tell a compelling story. They suggest that the Middle Pleistocene was a time of great evolutionary experimentation for humans. Instead of one species neatly replacing another, it seems there were multiple regional populations evolving in parallel. These groups were distinct enough to have their own unique anatomical features, but perhaps they were not completely isolated. The mosaic nature of fossils like Maba 1 and Jebel Irhoud might be evidence of occasional interbreeding between these different human forms, creating complex patterns that are difficult for us to unravel today. The discovery of the Denisovans adds another layer to this mystery. Known from just a few small bones and teeth from Denisova Cave in Siberia, their DNA tells us they were a distinct sister group to the Neanderthals. DNA analysis also shows that Denisovans interbred with the ancestors of modern humans in Asia. Many scientists now wonder if fossils like Maba 1 or the Dali skull could be the physical remains of a Denisovan. Without DNA from the Maba fossil itself, we cannot be certain, but the possibility that these enigmatic Chinese fossils belong to the mysterious Denisovans is a tantalizing one that drives further research. For a long time, the story of human evolution was focused heavily on Africa and Europe. Africa was seen as the cradle of humankind, where our species originated. Europe was the home of the Neanderthals, our most famous extinct relatives. East Asia was often viewed as a kind of evolutionary backwater. The Maba 1 skull, along with other Chinese fossils, has completely changed this perspective. It demonstrates that East Asia was a vital theater for human evolution. It was home to unique and complex populations that contributed to the rich tapestry of our ancestry. These fossils force us to adopt a more global view of our past. Modern technology is helping us to re-examine these important fossils in greater detail. Techniques like computed tomography scanning and three-dimensional virtual reconstruction allow us to look inside the Maba skull without damaging it. We can study the internal structures of the bone, measure the thickness of the skull with incredible precision, and even reconstruct the shape of the inner ear. These details, invisible to the naked eye, provide new clues about the fossil's identity and its relationship to other hominins. For example, recent CT scans of Maba 1 have revealed more about its brain case shape, strengthening the argument that it is distinct from both classic Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens. The Maba skull teaches us that human evolution was not a simple ladder, with one species climbing to the next. It was more like a branching bush, with many different lineages coexisting and interacting. East Asia was clearly home to at least one of these major branches. The unique combination of features in Maba 1 suggests a long period of regional evolution, possibly with occasional gene flow from other populations. This region was not just a passive recipient of migrations from Africa or Europe, it was an incubator of human diversity in its own right, a place where evolution took its own distinct path for hundreds of thousands of years. The mystery of Maba 1 is far from solved. Is it an Asian Neanderthal, a Denisovan, a late surviving Homo heidelbergensis, or something entirely new? Each possibility has profound implications for how we understand our own origins. The answers may lie in future fossil discoveries or in technological breakthroughs that could allow us to recover ancient DNA from fossils found in warm climates. For now, the skull from Lion Rock remains a beautiful and frustrating puzzle. It reminds us that there is still so much to learn about the human story, and that some of the most important clues may be waiting in museum drawers or buried in the ground.